Здравейте, здравейте, колеги! Благодаря ви, че избрахте да присъствате на нашия вебинар. Днес сме тук с Питър Лукантони от Cambridge IGCSE English и се надявам вебинара, който той е подготвил, да ви хареса. Питър е дългогодишен представител на Cambridge IGCSE Press, също така е автор на много издания на Cambridge, From Teacher to Trainer, Cambridge IGCSE as a Second Language и много други. И се надявам това, което той има да ни каже, да ви е интересно и полезно. Темата на днешния вебинар helping students to become great collaborators е интересна, избрана е специално от Питър и се надявам да ви хареса. Сега ще дам думата на Питър, за да може той да се представи и да започне неговия вебинар. Питър, hi! Can you present yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Maya. Thank you for the introduction. I didn't understand a word of it, but I hope it was all good things that you said about me. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I'm looking at the chat box and lots of you are saying hello and good day and hello. Unfortunately, I can't read your names because they're not written in a script which I understand, so I do apologize for not being able to say your names. Some of you, I can see Tatiana and Sylvia, but most of them, I'm afraid, I won't be able to say your names. Just before we start, something new that Cambridge has just introduced is our Cambridge English newsletters, which you can have delivered directly to your mobile or your laptop or any device that you're using, just by scanning the QR code which is on the screen. I'll put this on the screen again at the end in case you don't see it now. But if you sign up, you can have immediate access to resources and webinars, loads and loads of extra resources, of course, all for free from Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Okay, so what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to have a think about how we can help our students to become great collaborators. So we're going to have a think about what collaboration means and what it is that we can do in the classroom to help our students to become great collaborators. Maya has already spoken a little bit about me, but there it is on the screen. My name is Peter Lucantoni, that's Italian. My dad was Italian, but my mum is still alive, she's English. I was born in the UK, I was educated in the UK, but I left in the early 1980s and haven't actually lived in the UK since about 1983, which is about 40 years ago. I've lived in Europe, in Italy. I've also lived in the Middle East, and now I'm based in Cyprus, which is a little island in the Eastern Mediterranean. I work for Cambridge University Press and Assessment as the Professional Learning and Development Manager, which means my job is basically to support teachers across a very, very wide region, which includes Bulgaria. Which is great because I was there in Sofia earlier in the year, and I hope to be back again after Christmas, after New Year next year. I'm also an author, as I think Maya said. I picked up the words of my books when she was talking. Cambridge IGCSE English as a Second Language, which is now in its 6th edition. This is a course book for teenage students, and my methodology book, which I wrote with my colleague Matthew T Ellman, From Teacher to Trainer, which is basically a handbook for more experienced teachers who want to move into the role of teacher trainer. Okay, enough about me. Let's have a think about specifically what we're going to be doing today. Well, we're going to answer a few questions, but also focus on various elements to do with collaboration. The first thing we need to establish, of course, is what are collaboration skills. So we're going to have a think about what collaboration skills mean in terms of teaching and learning in the classroom. We're also going to think about why we should bother about collaboration skills. Why is it important to actually talk to students and to help them to develop their collaboration skills? Is it just another part of our jobs that we maybe don't want to do when we'd rather be just teaching them English? We're going to link all of this with the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, which you may not have come across so far, but it doesn't matter because we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to help you to understand how the framework can actually help you in the classroom. We're also going to be having a look at collaboration roles and task distribution when students are collaborating. And we're going to end up with a quick look at jigsaw tasks, which, again, if you're not familiar with jigsaw tasks, don't worry, we'll talk about them. But they're a very important element within collaboration, which helps students to develop their collaboration skills. And of course, hopefully we'll have plenty of time for questions as well. So we're going to begin with a little activity, and I call this activity 3-2-1 because you're going to do 3 things and then 2 things and then 1 thing. And this is something that you can take into the classroom this afternoon, tomorrow, whenever you want. You can adapt it using your own creativity with your students. But what I want you to do first is to think of 3 things that you understand about collaboration skills. I'm going to give you just 10-15 seconds. Have a think. What do you understand about collaboration skills? There's no right or wrong answers. Just have a think. Okay, now I don't think that you can speak to me. Can they speak to me, Maya? No.
No, just whatever.
Okay.
Just type it in the
chat. So just very quickly in the chat box, just type anything. There's no right or wrong answers. What do you understand about collaboration skills? Anything? It says qualcuno sta scrivendo, so somebody is writing. So let's see. Who is the somebody? Maybe you could put your name in Roman script so I can see what your name is. What do you understand about collaboration skills? Okay, Zlatka, I'm sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. They're a must, absolutely. They need to be regularly developed and it could be assessed correctly. Great, brilliant, thank you. Ability to work together, good. People working together, Alexandra, thank you for putting your name so I could read it. Brilliant, lovely, good. Anything else? Just give me one more. Anything that you understand about collaboration skills? Okay, somebody's writing. Always forget how much longer things take online, don't they? You have to type more quickly. Whoever is typing needs to type more quickly. Here we go. Alexandra again, thank you. Probably the possibility to be able to speak up freely and listening with open ears. And Sylvia says working together. Brilliant, lovely, lovely, really nice, great. Okay, number 2. What I want you to do now is give me 2 challenges that you face when you get your students to collaborate. So when you put your students together in a context, in a situation where they have to collaborate, what challenges do you face? And somebody's just put collaboration skills are vital when we work with many people. Good, okay, so let's now look at the challenges. Same again, just type in the chat box. What are the challenges that you face? Angelina says teamwork, group work. I think you're referring to what you understand, the first one. Okay, Zlatka says practical challenges. Too much time and turmoil to form the groups. Really nice. Yeah, and we're going to address that when we talk today. Alexandra says different personalities. Yeah, that's a really important point, isn't it? Different levels of understanding about the certain topic. Lovely, good. Ivan or Ivan, certain students just may not like to work with each other. And I think it's something, Ivan, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I think that's a really important thing that I think as teachers, we tend to just say in your groups. And we forget that some people actually don't like working in groups. And it doesn't matter if you're an adult or if you're a teenager, we have to take that into account. And Zlavka says, that she finds it hard to think of what we can actually do with students in groups. Who's this? I think it's Lapka again, says, what are the actual tasks that we give students to do in the groups when speaking in English? Yeah. And it looks like it might, is that Christina? Maybe, I don't know. Some students never seem to be willing to do any work. Yeah, and Vanya, students want to work with friends, not in teams. Okay, lovely, brilliant. And finally, for my 3-2-1 activity, one takeaway that you want from this session. What would you like to take away at the end of our hour and 20 minutes or so together? What do you want to take away? I don't have any prizes, I'm afraid. Zlatka says practical suggestions, of course. Yeah, this is what we want. Zlatka says assessment of collaboration skills. Yeah, you'll definitely have that, and you'll definitely have practical suggestions for group formation on particular tasks as well. Great. So 3-2-1 is a really nice little activity that you can use at the beginning of a lesson. You can use it at the end of a lesson in order to introduce a new topic or to reflect on a new topic. Now, obviously, with your students, you're not going to ask them to think about collaboration skills, but you may say 3 things that you know about today's topic in the unit, 2 new words that you've learned in today's lesson, 1 question that you have about today's lesson or about today's topic. So it's a really practical and flexible little activity that you might want to use. Okay, if we go to the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and I'm sure you do every day because we all do, and you search for collaboration, this is what you get. I'll just give you a few seconds to read that. And I think there are 2 important things there that we need to take notice of. The first part is it talks about 2 or more people working together. Yep, that's what we mean by collaboration, 2 or more people working together. And the second thing that it points out is these people working together are creating or achieving the same thing. Now, I think one of the challenges that we face when we put students into situations where they're working together is that they don't create or achieve the same thing. They tend to work individually in the group, or they tend not to work at all. And these are the challenges that we're going to be thinking about today. So 2 things to take away from that particular definition from the Cambridge Dictionary: 2 or more people working together. So collaboration refers not only to groups, but also to pairs. And I'm sure in every lesson, we're putting students into pairs and groups. So collaboration is not just groups, but also pairs, and it's also about students creating or achieving the same thing together. So we know now what collaboration is, but the next question is, what are collaboration skills? So we're going to watch a very short video produced by Cambridge, and there's no task really, just to watch and listen. And after the video, we're going to focus on some of the key things that the speakers in the video actually say. It's quite short, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. Here we go.
Collaboration is where people work together to achieve more than they could on their own, working towards a shared goal.
So it allows us to see things from other people's perspectives, it allows us to be more creative, and also to improve the overall quality of our work and our lives.
So how do we develop these skills in the classroom? Teachers need to think carefully about how they set up and structure the activities, not just leave students to work it out for themselves.
So project-based tasks, or tasks that require students to make a group decision, are really useful for collaboration. And to get the most out of these activities, teachers can help set them up by giving clear goals and clear steps to develop these collaboration skills.
Okay, hopefully you picked up on some of the points that the 2 people from Cambridge made. I think 4 important things for me. First of all, they talked about personal responsibility, but then also they talked about individual something, group something, and task something. So can you match individual, group, and task with the other three words on the right? And then we'll look at what they mean. So we've got personal responsibility. What about the other three? Individual what did they talk about? Individual what? Or group what? Or task what? So Zlatka says individual contribution. Okay, yep. A couple of you are saying individual contribution. Yeah, Zlatka also says group decision and task completion. Okay, let's have a look and see what the answers are. So here they are, and I've also added a couple of other things that were said during the video, but let's have a quick think about what they mean. First of all, personal responsibility. I think as teachers, as educators, when we put people into groups, we maybe forget the importance of personal responsibility. As soon as we put people into groups, we think of group responsibility and we think of group decisions. But of course, what we also need to consider is that everybody in the group has a personal responsibility and they need to make an individual contribution. I think as teachers, we sometimes forget this. And I think students forget as well. They think when they go into a group, they can rest, they can sit back, they can do nothing. But if we manage the groups in the right way, if we set the groups up in the right way, if we make sure that students have individual responsibility as well as personal responsibility, if they have a role, then they're much more likely to be involved in the group and to make a contribution. And we'll come back to roles and responsibilities in a little while. The third bullet talks about group tasks. Again, I think this is something that we maybe forget or underestimate the importance. But what's the point of putting students into a group if what you're asking them to do could be done individually? Don't just put students into groups for the sake of it. You're looking at your lesson plan. Oh, I don't have any group activities. I'd better put them into a group just for the sake of it. No, that's a complete waste of time. Only put students into groups if they have a task which requires them to work together as a group. The fourth point is about interaction, and the speakers in the video, they mentioned interaction. Obviously, when we put students into groups, it's important that they interact. We don't want just one person dominating. Also within the group, of course, we're going to have sharing, not just sharing ideas, but sharing language and learning from each other. It's a wonderful opportunity, isn't it, when students are working together well in a group. It's a wonderful opportunity to share and to learn from each other. Even though students have personal responsibility and they're making individual contributions, let's not forget that ultimately we need a group decision. It doesn't matter if everybody doesn't agree. That's not the point. It's very rare, isn't it, that you have unanimous decisions. So it doesn't matter if one student in the group doesn't agree, or even two students in the group don't agree. What they must all aim for is a group decision at the end. And of course, that's linked in with the final bullet on the screen, which is about task completion. Let's make sure that we give students the time and the resources so they can actually complete the task. It's no good saying to students, looking at your watch, no time, we can't finish, see you in the next lesson. That can be very demotivating for students if they can't see the completion of what it is that they're trying to do. So how do we do it? How do we as teachers, how do we manage all of this? Well, I think there are three clear things, and they were said in the video. The three things that teachers need to have. First of all, this, a clear what? Any idea? I think it was Ben, the man on the video. He said teachers need to have a clear what. Somebody says clear sight. I think that's really important. It's not what they said on the video, but I agree with you. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. I don't know who it is. But,
it's Galina.
Sorry?
Galina.
Galina. Okay, yes, I should have got that. Yes, okay. Yeah, Galina, thank you, says sight, and Zlatka says steps. Good. Any other ideas? Teachers need to have a clear what. Let's take one more. One more word beginning with S. Clear what. I don't think anything's coming. No. Okay, I'll show you. He actually said a clear setup, which I think is like Galina's idea of clarity in what you're trying to do, and also Zlatka's answers of clear steps. So as a teacher, if you're thinking about a group task, if you're thinking about putting students into groups, you need to be very clear in your mind about the steps, the stages, if you like, in the whole process of setting up the group activity. Okay, the second one. Another S, ST. What about this one? Not steps, Zlatka. So clear setup and clear. Zlatka says structure. Galina says strategy. Good. I'm getting lots from Zlatka and Galina. Anybody else here? No prizes. It's not a test. Yes, somebody else whose name I can't pronounce, I'm afraid, says agrees with Galina and says strategy. Okay, let's have a look. It's actually clear structure, but I think clear strategy is also very, very important. So not only do we need to have the setup, we need to also be thinking about the whole structure, how this is actually going to take place in the classroom. And the last one, this doesn't begin with S, but it ends with LS. Teachers need to have a what? Yeah, Angelina, thank you. And Galina says results, goals. Yeah, that'll do. Thank you very much. Good. So we need, as teachers, we need to be very clear about how we're going to set the whole thing up. What do we need? What resources do we need? What resources do the students need? Do they need pens? Do they need paper? Do they need a dictionary? Do they need video? What is it that they actually need? Then there needs to be a structure. What's the first thing they do? What's the second thing they do? What's the third thing they do? And finally, what's the goal? What's the goal for me as a teacher, but also what's the goal for the students themselves? And I was looking through one of the course books that you use in Bulgaria, English in Mind. I know you have a special edition for Bulgaria. And it didn't take me long to find a really nice example of this clear setup, clear structure, clear goals. It's really, I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? This is what we should be doing with our students. We should be making things very, very clear in the course book, what it is that we want, what it is that we want them to do. So just think about the goals, first of all. If you go to exercise 13 and underneath the little picture of the email, it's very clear what the goals are. Write an email and tell her about New Year's Eve resolution and what you're going to do this week. So it's very clear what the goals actually are. The structure is also there. First of all, read and listen, then speak, and then write with sub information about the structure. And the setup, well, obviously that comes back to the teacher, but it's very, very clear what you as the teacher need to do in order to set up this activity and to make sure the structure and the goals are clear to our students. And of course, I've just taken one example from English in Mind Level 2, but the whole book is full of examples of how this these important steps are integrated into the coursebook. And just as an example, if you were getting your students to do a group presentation, that's the goal, about a special event. As a teacher, you might want to set it up like this. So first of all, you need to decide on your groups and the roles, and we'll have a look at roles later on in our time together. But you as the teacher decide on the groups, and you need to decide on the roles in advance. It's no good looking at your class and saying, right, you four, you four, you four, you four, and you're a 5 and you're a 3. It's no good doing that. You need to think about who is going to go into which group based on those individuals' needs and their strengths. And I know some of the challenges you mentioned earlier. You said students don't like to go in groups, they like to be with their friends. And I understand all of that, and that's human nature. Even as adults, you know, there are certain people that we prefer not to work with and people that we do want to work with. But I think the important thing here is that students have to understand that they go into the group just for the group task, and then they can go back and sit with their friends. So do say that to students. Tell them, for this activity, you're going to work in groups, but after the activity, you can go back and sit with your friends or in your pairs or rows or whatever it is. I think also you as the teacher, you need to decide who is going to do what in the group. And this comes back to personal responsibility. If students don't have roles in groups, then if they don't want to do anything, they're just going to sit there and not do anything. But if they have a specific role, so they have to make an individual contribution, then they're much, much more likely to be involved in the group activity. Once you've allocated roles to students, you need to make sure they understand what that role actually means. What are they supposed to do? What do they not need to do? And I'll show you in a little bit later a little matching task that you can do with students to help them understand roles within a group. Explain the activity. What's the setup? What's the structure? Make sure that students understand what the activity actually is. What is it that they're trying to do? Where do they have to do it? Do they have to do it sitting at their desks? Excuse me. Are they allowed to stand up? Are they allowed to move around? Are they allowed to go online? Are they not allowed to go online? Etc. 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 Yeah, and make sure students understand within the group what their roles are and who's doing what. Then give them time to complete the task, but break it down. Break it down into different steps. Don't just say, do the task. It's very important with group tasks that it's broken down into manageable pieces. And this is particularly true with younger learners. Younger learners can't focus for more than 2 to 3 minutes on something. So break things down. The older the student, the larger the chunks of time can actually be. But, you know, give them time limits. So you've got 10 minutes for this, 5 minutes for this, 3 minutes for this, and keep looking at your watch. Of course, you can give them more time if necessary, but the important thing is that the students are aware that there is a time limit. And then finally, at the end, they're actually going to do their presentation. And again, make sure that students have a time limit and they understand what the time limit actually is. So what I've just done is give you an example of how it's, as a teacher, we need to be very clear in our minds about what the setup is and what the structure is, and what our goals are as a teacher, as well as what the goals are for a student. So let's just quickly reflect on what we've done in our first half hour or so. Very quickly in the chat box, number 1, what does the dictionary tell us about collaboration? Quick, in the chat box, what can you remember? What did the Cambridge Dictionary say? And you can also be looking at questions 2 and 3. Students achieve something together. Very good, Zlatka. Somebody whose name I can't pronounce says co-work. Thank you very much. Good. Anything else about collaboration? How many people is collaboration? 2 or more people. Thank you, Alexandra. Brilliant. Well done. Excellent. Excellent, Tatiana. Good. What about question 2? Collaboration requires both personal responsibility and individual what? Zlatka is in first with contribution. Okay, brilliant. Yep. And thank you, Diana. Good. And finally, what do teachers need to have? What are the 3 things we've just been talking about? Clear setup. Good, Zlatka. Second one, clear structure. Good. And the third one, clear setup, structure and goals. Brilliant. Well done, everybody. That's excellent. So I know you're all awake and listening. Very good. Right. So I think we understand now what collaboration means, and we're getting an idea now of what collaboration skills are. Let's now have a think about why we should be developing collaboration skills. What's all the fuss about? Why do we need to develop collaboration skills? I think the first thing we need to consider is that when students are working together, when they're collaborating, then they get help and they get support from other students. And let's not underestimate this. We're always going to have students in our classrooms who are shy and who lack confidence in front of the teacher. And maybe if we put them to work with their friends, they'll be more relaxed and more comfortable getting support and help from their friends and from other students rather from the teacher. So let's not underestimate it. It's important that students have these opportunities to get help from each other as well as from the teacher. I think another very important thing that we probably don't always think about as teachers is that when a teacher is asking a student a question, you know, when it's a teacher-student type of situation, that puts an enormous amount of pressure on the individual student to come up with an answer. Not just to come up with an answer, but to come up with the correct answer. Because if they come up with the wrong answer, then we've got a whole load of other problems that we need to deal with. So I think something else that's important about collaboration skills is when students are working together, when they're talking to each other, then there's far less pressure on them as an individual when they're doing an activity. So that teacher-student pressure is much reduced when students are working in groups. I think a third thing that's important when we consider why we should be developing collaboration skills is that when the teacher takes a step back, which is what I'm doing now in my office, when the teacher takes a step back, then students are very much on their own. They no longer have the teacher there to help them. So really important element within collaboration skills, that it helps students to become more autonomous. It helps them to become more independent and more confident. And there's some really nice comments popping into the chat box now. I think it's Christina, soft skills are a must in life. Absolutely. And I think we forget as teachers, don't we, that one day our students are no longer going to be with us at the classroom. They're going to be out there in the big wide world. So all of these skills, not just language, but all of the soft skills are incredibly important. And Anita, maybe, I don't know if I'm saying that right, ability to collaborate effectively contributes to success and fulfillment. Yeah, and Tatiana talks about time management skills. Okay, another thing that I think we need to consider, and you know, at the end of the day, we want students to use English, but if it's just teacher-student, teacher-student, student-teacher, then how many opportunities does a student have to actually use English in a 40-minute lesson or a 50-minute lesson? Very, very few opportunities. Put students into groups and immediately the amount of time and the number of opportunities they have for practicing speaking and of course listening in English goes up. And again, just quickly looking at English in Mind, so many opportunities in English in Mind for students to work in with a partner in pairs and also to work in groups. So don't underestimate. I think, you know, when it says work with a partner, we think, oh, pair work, and we probably forget collaboration. But remember what the dictionary says, collaboration is when two or more people are working together in order to achieve a particular goal. So let's not forget the importance of pair work. And as I said, there's lots of opportunities in English in Mind for pair work activities as well as group activities. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, let's have a think about our, the top 10 things that we should be thinking about. As I've already said, and as they said on the video, establish the rules. Make sure that students understand what the rules are when they go into a group and when they're doing a group activity. Now, we don't have time today, but we could have a whole other workshop on how you set up rules. How do you establish rules? I think it's important that you establish rules with your students. It should be a two-way process. Students need to understand what they can and what they can't do in those groups. I don't know if I'm going to say the right thing now, but I hope I'm not wrong. But I do think when you're talking about rules and expectations, I don't have a problem if this is done with the teacher in the student's first language, because I think it's so important that students understand what the rules are. So if you need to do this in their first language, just for 5 minutes to establish what the rules are and then translate them into English so you have the rules in the classroom, I don't have a problem if that's done in L1, because it's so important that the students understand what the rules are. I'm not for one moment suggesting that we go to a translation type of teaching, absolutely not. I'm just saying that for this particular thing, I think it's worthwhile possibly doing it in their first language. So we need to make sure that students understand the rules. And secondly, a point I've already made, make sure that the task that you're giving the students actually needs collaboration. If it's a task which a student can do independently, what's the point in putting them into a group? It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of time. And students won't understand why you've put them into a group if there's no need for any sort of collaboration. We've talked a lot about having a clear setup, and of course part of having a clear setup is having very, very clear instructions. And I showed you a couple of slides back an example activity with instruction, not so much instructions, but the setup. But your instructions need to obviously connect with whatever the setup is. And again, particularly with younger learners, don't just give the instructions at the beginning and then say, get on with it for half an hour. No, you need to keep stopping and checking, stopping and checking, stopping and checking all the time, making sure that people have understood what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and they are indeed doing it. Fourth thing, we've talked about establishing who's in the group. And I think part of this is making sure that when you put students into groups, students are not always put into the same groups. You need to move students around the groups, give them opportunities to work with different people based on their individual skills, their individual needs, their individual likes and their individual dislikes. But all the time remembering that students, or telling students that when the activity is finished, they can go back to their original place in the classroom. Of course, once you've decided on the group, you then need to start thinking about who's going to do what in the group, and we'll come to roles in a bit more detail in just a minute. I think when we put students into groups and we start thinking about collaboration skills, it can possibly be a bit overwhelming for students. So I think it's important that when students are in their group, we just focus on one collaboration skill. Now, we haven't really talked yet about collaboration skills. We talked about one collaboration skill, but we haven't really looked at sub-skills, if you like, of collaboration. So we'll come to that in a minute. But the point I'm making here is that when the students are working in a group, when they're doing a collaborative task, it's important that we focus on just one element of collaboration. As I say, we'll talk about that more in just a minute. At the end of the day, we're language teachers, and collaboration is not going to work without language. So it's very important that students have the language which they need in order to collaborate effectively. Now, I'm not talking here about learning and practicing the present perfect. I'm talking about the type of language that we use in a group when we're collaborating. For example, well, what do you think? Do you have any other ideas? This is my idea. This is what I think, in my opinion. But what about you? Okay, shall we try and come to a conclusion? No, this is the type of language which students need, and they can use this in every lesson, in every activity. I've mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it again because I think it's so important, is that students have time limits and that we set lots of time limits during for a group activity. And as a teacher, you've got to be quite dogmatic about this. There's no point saying you've got this amount of time and then you forget it. No, you have to say, right, you've got 3 minutes for this activity. Yeah, It's a bit like MasterChef, where they say, right, you've got 2 minutes to get your plate ready. Come on, come on, come on. And as soon as the 2 minutes are up, that's it. Stop putting the food on the plate. That's it. I'm not saying you need to be quite as strict as they are on MasterChef, but what's the point in setting a time limit if you don't push the students to keep to that time limit? Make sure, of course, as with everything we do, make sure that the students have an example. Make sure they understand what the goal is. Give them a model. And really, very importantly, make sure you give them some feedback on all their hard work. And as I mentioned earlier, that it's really important that students have an opportunity to complete the task. What's the point in going to all the effort of setting everything up and thinking about the structure and the setup and the goals and so on, and then, okay, sorry, we haven't got time, see you next week. It becomes meaningless for the students, and of course they lose their motivation and they lose their engagement. So, when you're doing your planning, make sure there's enough time to do what you want to do. There's nothing wrong in doing half the task today and another part in the next lesson, as long as it's clear that you're going to be doing having that sort of approach. The important thing is that you make time for the activity to be completed, even if it takes over 2 or 3 lessons, and that there's time for reflection. And I just point out here, I'm not talking now about a task taking 3 lessons. No, what I mean is that in your planning, right, we're going to have 10 minutes on our group task today, 10 minutes tomorrow, and 20 minutes on Thursday. So over 3 lessons, you allocate bits of time to do the task, a bit like a project, if you like, or a mission that the students complete. Okay, so very quickly now, in the chat box, what can you remember? Give me 2 reasons why students should develop, why we should develop students' collaboration skills, and give me 2 top tips. So you can be thinking about both questions. Any ideas? Boosting their self-confidence. Lovely, lovely. I can't say your name, I'm afraid. It's like practicing their English gives them more agency to work on their own. Lovely. Yeah, good. Yeah. Any others? Somebody's writing. Zlatka talks about checking understanding, and a nice one here from Alexandra, giving feedback, acknowledging their work, assigning roles. Yes, good. Boosting skills, reducing pressure. Lovely. Really, really nice. Yeah. These are all very, very good reasons about why we should be developing students' collaboration skills. What about top tips? Top tips for developing collaboration skills. Zlatka says setting a time limit. Yes, very important. Yes, making sure students have roles. Is that Galina? Yes, that's Galina, isn't it? Yes, yes. Is that Christina? Christina, establishing rules. Yeah. Making sure everyone sends the rules, planning in advance. Lovely. Okay, brilliant. You get it. You get it. Okay. So, within the Cambridge Life Competencies framework, we have a section on collaboration. So what we're going to do now is have a little look at how the framework can help us in the classroom. And first of all, just, why do we have a framework? Well, one of the reasons we have a framework is because we want to teach students how to collaborate. But just as important, we want to help you as teachers to provide students with contexts and experiences, learning experiences, where they can develop their collaboration skills at the same time as learning English. So the two, if you like, are integrated. Okay, so the Life Competencies framework looks at 8 life competencies, critical thinking, communication, creative thinking and emotional development and so on, and of course collaboration, which is the one that we're focusing on today. And the framework also looks at these life competencies by stages of learning or even age, if you like. So we have a focus on young learners, another one on teenage learners, and another one on adult learners. And of course, if you're teaching English in Mind, then the framework that you should be considering is the teenage learner framework. All of this that I'm showing you now on the screen is available for free to download. Just go to cambridge.org/ and then type CLCF, Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, and you'll find all of this material is there for you. So we're going to look at it in a bit more detail now. And if you remember earlier, when we looked at the meaning of collaboration, we established that collaboration is people working together to achieve a shared goal. That's what we had at the beginning when we looked at the Cambridge Dictionary. Now, the framework, the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, breaks down collaboration into 4 key areas. And the first one I put on the screen, but I've blanked out some of the words. So take personal R for own contribution to a G task. And you're very quick in the chat box. Yeah, responsibility and goal. Yeah, brilliant. So one element of collaboration skills is that students need to take personal responsibility for their own contribution to a group task. That's the first core area. Here's the second one. Encourage effective group what? Encourage effective group what? Group contribution, collaboration, contribution. Yeah, let's have a look. It's actually interaction, but I like your ideas. They all work. They all work. Don't worry if you didn't get exactly what I've got on the screen. So remember what collaboration means. Collaboration means people working together to achieve a shared goal. How? How do we do that? How do we demonstrate it? Somebody, I think, mentioned earlier, how do we evaluate students in terms of their collaboration skills? Well, 2 things that we've seen now. We need to look at how students take responsibility for their contributions. And we also need to look at how students encourage effective group interaction. And the third one, and we're going to be looking at this in more detail, which is why I put it in bold. Students need to manage the what of tasks in a group activity. What do you think? Ah, nice. Number, competition, time. Yeah, completion. It's actually sharing. So within the group, students need to manage the sharing of the tasks within the group. Not just the teacher doing this, but the students taking responsibility for this as well. And we'll end up with an easy one. The 4th one is working towards task what? Great. Okay, you've got it. Yeah, working towards task completion. So the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework details all of the things that you're seeing on the screen. It gives us an enormous amount of information about this particular one that we're looking at today, which is collaboration. So we've now seen the 4 core areas. So here they are again on the left of your screen. So within collaboration, we've identified 4 key areas: taking personal responsibility, encouraging effective group interaction, managing the sharing of tasks, and working towards task completion. And as I said, we're going to be looking at the 3rd one in a little bit more detail. But just before we go there, what we've done at Cambridge is we've taken those 4 core areas and we've broken them down into component skills, or if you like, sub-skills. So here are the sub-skills. So for each core area, we've identified 2 or 3 component skills or sub-areas. And the one that we're going to be looking at in a bit more detail, managing the sharing of tasks, we've actually got 2 sub-skills. First one, agreeing what needs to be done. And the second one, managing the distribution of tasks. So the core area, managing the sharing of tasks in a group activity, what we want students to show to us is that they can agree within the group, come to a consensus on what needs to be done, and managing how the tasks are going to be distributed. So agreeing what needs to be done. So what we have to do, what the book says or what the teacher says, we have to do a presentation on a wonderful event in our country. How are we going to do it? Well, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that, and I'm going to do that. So we have agreeing and we have managing. But that's not enough. Here's our 2 component skills. What we also need is some way that we can, as teachers, check what students are doing. Now, with language, we have the Common European Framework, and the Common European Framework gives us, if you like, levels of ability, A1, A2, B1, B2, but within that, it tells us what students can do at the individual levels. So at A2 level, at key, it tells us that students can write an email to a friend, for example. A student can ask for a sandwich in a restaurant, for example. It tells us specifically what students can do. Now we have the same for the Life Competencies Framework. For each component skill, the framework tells us what a student can do or what they should be able to do. And this is how you can evaluate in a formative manner in the classroom students' collaboration skills. So agreeing what needs to be done, a student clearly expresses the requirements of the task, asking other students for clarification when necessary. Managing the distribution of tasks, a student delegates to other students politely and respectfully. So these are the soft skills. These are what we want students to demonstrate. But of course, what they need in order to do this is language. So how does a student clearly express the requirements? How does a student delegate to other students? So just very quickly in the chat box, can you give me an example of what you think a student might say when they're expressing the requirements, or when they're asking other students, or when they're delegating? Keep it simple, but what do you think an example of language might be? Obviously, what we're looking for here is functional language. Lovely, Zaka. What a lovely example to start off with. Brilliant. Yeah, we need to. Brilliant. Excellent. Well done. Any other examples? Somebody's typing. Your role is to. Lovely. Brilliant. Oh, it's Zlaka again. Okay. I think Zlaka should have a prize today. I don't have any, but anybody else? I don't know how to say your name. Yeah, I don't know.
Gergana. Peter, it's Gergana.
Gergana, brilliant. What you're expected to do, good. And the next one, again, I can't add, yeah, I don't know. Completion, yeah. Okay, some nice ideas coming in. Let me show you what the framework, the examples that the framework gives. It says we should, but the examples that you gave are a lovely example. Remember, these are just examples of language. And for delegating to other students, would you mind doing something? And notice that in the can-dos, it talks about being polite and being respectful as well. So these are also key elements in collaboration. If we want students to be effective collaborators, they need to be polite. They need to respect each other. They need to respect each other's opportunities, but also other people's opinions as well. Now, Coursebooks encourage collaboration skills, but what we've done at Cambridge is to give you a wonderful resource, which again is available to freely download from our website, are these activity cards. And you'll see this one on, if you look at the top left of your screen, it says collaboration. Can you see my cursor, my arrow? Can you see that? Or I'm waving it around collaboration. Can you see that or not? No, I don't think you can. No, okay. Top left of the slide, it says collaboration, and over on the right, it says working towards task completion, and then underneath, ensuring progress towards a goal, and then we have an activity. So these are called activity cards. So for every for every life competency, collaboration, critical thinking, creative thinking, emotional development, digital literacy, all of those, we have a set of activity cards. And then for each core area, we have different activities that you can do with your students. And over on the right of your screen, I've just shown you an example of how the activity card from Cambridge can be used to support something that's in English in Mind Bulgaria edition. Here's another example. This one, working towards task completion. It's not very clear, the picture I've shown you from English in Mind, but it's a really nice example of how the course book and these activity cards can be used together if you want to do something more with your students in order to develop their collaboration skills. Okay, I've talked a lot about roles and task distribution, but I haven't really given you much information yet about this. But one of the things that I've mentioned several times is that it's important as teachers that we decide on the roles that students are going to have within a group. It's very important that each student has an individual role, because if they have an individual role, they have a personal responsibility in order to contribute on an individual basis. There's no reason why two students can't have the same role, but it's nice if students have got different roles so they feel that personal responsibility. I think if students are not used to working in groups and having roles assigned to them, I think you need to make sure that they are happy with this before you say to them, okay, today in your groups, you decide on the roles. Let the students decide who is going to do what in the roles, in the groups. You need to monitor it, because we don't always want somebody who is good at writing to do all the writing. Other students need to have opportunities so they can develop their writing skills as well. But I think once you are confident that your students can do this well and won't just muck around and play games and not take it seriously, then I think you can say, right, in your groups today, you decide who's going to do what within the group. So, before that, though, of course, students need training before you assign the roles. They need to understand what the roles are. So on the screen, we've got 5 roles. The first one I've done for you, team leader or organizer. So somebody who's in charge, somebody who is responsible for the group, somebody who has to organize everybody within the group. And then I've got 4 other roles, and of course I've made them into anagrams and I've jumbled up the letters. So quickly, in the chat box, put the numbers as well, please, so I know which one you're referring to. Christina, I think number 2 says timekeeper. Okay, she's jumping ahead. All right, what about 1, 3, and 4? Any ideas? Number 2 also time. I don't know. What is it? Anita? I think Anita. That must be your name. Says timekeeper as well. Yeah. You've all done the easy one. Let's go for presenter. But which one are you looking at? Number 3. Presenter. Yeah. Good. Good, well done. What about the others? What about the first one? I'll give you a visual clue. Number 4, checker. Okay, number 1 is, you're having problems with number 1? I'll give you another visual clue. Note taker. Well done, Christina. Excellent. Good. So here we go. We need a note taker. We need a timekeeper. We need a presenter. And we need a checker. And we need a time leader or an organizer. And there may be other roles that you want. These are just examples of some of the roles that you may decide that your group activity will actually need. We're not saying these are the only ones. So I mentioned earlier that you could do a matching activity with your students to help them to understand what the roles actually mean. So here's an activity you could do with your students when you first introduce roles into the classroom. Obviously, they have to match 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with A, B, C, D, E over on the right. So again, you can put your answers in the chat box. Please don't do them one by one. Give me all 5 answers in the chat box. So I'll give you 60 seconds to have a think. As I say, don't just do them one by one. Give me all 5 answers in the chat box. Somebody's already writing. We've got about 20 seconds left. Soon as you're ready. No, Christina, I don't want one answer. Put all the answers. And 2B is not actually correct.
You're a harsh teacher, Peter.
Sorry?
You're a very strict teacher.
Right, so Yagana has put, what? Don't worry, Christina. Zlatka agrees, yes, 1E, 2C, 3A, 4B, 5B. Brilliant, good, yeah. Christina, 3A. Yeah, but I want all of them, Christina, not just one of them. But that's correct, Christina. Yeah, Tatiana. Okay, brilliant. Well done. Okay, I'm going to jump into the answers. So the organizer is the one who's making sure that everyone is doing something to complete the task well. Now, of course, normally, who is the organizer? The teacher. But the whole point of a group activity is for you, the teacher, to be able to step back, and I'm doing it again in my office, step back so that you can monitor everybody and what they're doing. So one student, one student in the group has the task of making sure that everyone is doing something to complete the task well. The note taker is a person who writes notes. It could be writing notes about decisions that are being made, or it could be somebody who's actually writing. If it's a group writing task, the note taker could be the one who does the writing. Obviously, the timekeeper is looking at time. And remember what I said earlier, it's very important that as a teacher, you set lots and lots of time limits, but within the group, you need somebody reminding the group about the time as well, not just the teacher. The presenter, if there is a presentation outcome, so the presenter could be the one who tells the class what you did. And obviously the checker is somebody that's checking that all the instructions are being followed correctly. Now, there's no reason for you to have all 5 of these roles. You could also have more than one presenter. Why does it have to just be one person doing the presentation? And indeed, the presenter could also have one of the other roles as well. So I'm not being dogmatic here. I'm just saying that it's important that students are allocated particular roles, and you can decide what those roles are. This is not a final list, that there are loads of other roles. I mean, it could be somebody doing research online, or it could be somebody doing research by looking at magazines and books. So there are other roles that you might want to create depending on the task that the students have to do and what you have available. So here's a lovely example from English in Mind, Bulgaria edition. This is from level 2. And the activity says it work in groups of 3. So if students are working in groups of 3, what particular roles have they got? So what are the roles? The students are in a group of 3. What roles do they have? Or what roles could you give them? Any ideas? We're still getting answers coming in for the previous activity, but don't worry about that now. Let's move on. So read the activity on the screen and tell me what roles the 3 people could have. Now, obviously, in the book, it says the roles are Pete, Jess, and Mrs. Sanders, but before they get to the role play, what are the roles that you could allocate to the students? Zlatka says checker, Anita, group leader, timekeeper, checker. Great. Yeah. Obviously, it's up to you as the teacher, and we don't all have to agree, but do think, what are the roles that the students have when they're working in groups of 3? Don't just say, right, you 3, you 3, you 3, and you 3, do it. No, think about it. Remember what we said earlier. What were the clear things? Clear setup, clear structure, clear goals. Yeah? So do take this into consideration. Here's another example. Just have a quick look at the coursebook activity. And if you look at B on the right of your screen, it says ask and answer the questions with 3 other people in the class. So we've gone from 3 people in the previous activity to 4 people for exercise B. And then for C, share your favorite ideas with the class. So the group suddenly becomes the whole class. So the point I'm making here is that as teachers, we need to be very aware of what the different roles are that we want students to take on when they're doing these activities. And here's just more examples from English in Mind of opportunities for students to be collaborating. Work with a partner, work with a partner, work with a different partner, work with a partner, work in groups, ask your partner about, and on the top right, tell the class about them so the collaboration becomes even greater. So while on the one hand, you may not be all that familiar with collaboration and what it means, you will find in a coursebook like English in Mind that there are loads and loads of opportunities for students to develop their collaboration skills. Right, let's come on to the last thing, which I said we would talk about today, which is jigsaw tasks. And I've got 2 questions to have a think about. First of all, what is a jigsaw task and how does it promote collaboration and communication? So the first question, what is a jigsaw task? Would anybody like to give me a very quick, short explanation of a jigsaw task? In the chat box, somebody is writing. There's a clue in the picture. Alexandra says, I suppose this, be more confident, Alexandra. Everyone has their own task and then they gather the information together. That's pretty good, Alexandra. Yeah, nice. And Christina says, 2 students have different information they need to put together. Lovely, yes. And Anita says, a task completion is connected with combining different pieces of information. Brilliant. And I don't know how to pronounce that one. I do apologize. 2 students have different information they need to put together. Okay, Yep, and somebody's still writing. Let's just take one more. No, they've stopped. Oh no, they're writing again. I think we've got the idea of students having different bits of information, and they need to share that information. They need to put the information together. Yogana says working on different chunks of a whole task. Very nice. Okay, I think we've got there with the first question. What about the second question? How does that promote collaboration and communication? And I'm just looking at my clock, and I can see we've only got about 15 minutes. So I think I'm actually just going to talk this through with you. Obviously, if students have different bits of information and they need to share them, immediately you have an opportunity, don't you, for students to work together. That's what we said at the beginning when we looked at the definition of collaboration. What is collaboration? Collaboration is two or more people working together to come up with a solution to something. So how does a jigsaw task promote collaboration and communication? It's inherent in what the task is. And Alexandra says, only humans can share information verbally. Not sure about that. So that's what we need to work on with our students. But yeah, I think a lot of people would argue that cats and dogs and domestic animals, they share information using their own language. Okay, so just as an example of a primary or a secondary, nice comment there from Christina. One person cannot complete the task. Exactly. Good. Yeah. So our objective is to encourage students to think about the before and after sections of a text, enabling them to make predictions between paragraphs. And our second objective, to help students to see a reading text as a whole in order to answer reading questions more accurately and effectively. So these are our objectives for a primary or a secondary task. So how would we actually do it? Well, here's just a suggestion on how we could create a jigsaw task with those objectives. So we would need to divide the content into A and B. If it's a paired jigsaw task, of course, it could be more than A and B. So if you have a text, you could divide it into the text into two, or another alternative is divide the questions into two. So some students answer these questions and other students answer other questions. And of course, this is also thinking about differentiation. This is a really nice way that you can differentiate a task with your students. So then divide the students up. So first of all, you divide the content, either the text or the questions. Then you divide the students. So this group is going to read this part and this group is going to read that part, or this group is going to answer those questions and then this group is going to answer those questions, and the students work in their group to do the task. Obviously, as a teacher, you don't go and have a coffee, but you need to monitor, you need to give support to students. And then you mix up the students. So somebody from A goes to somebody with B, and they share what they've read, they share their solutions, they share their answers to the questions that they've been answering. So you're bringing people together who have different elements of information. I'm just going back to the chat box because I can see that you're typing in some nice ideas. Christina says that one person cannot complete the task. Exactly, because you don't have all the information. We also have different kinds of views, and one person cannot complete the task. Okay, great. So here's an example from English in Mind. I just took a text from English in Mind and I blanked out 4 paragraphs. So on the right of the screen, you can see my idea for creating a jigsaw task from English in Mind. And what I decided to do is my sort of mini lesson plan is on the right-hand side of the screen. So before the students look at the text, you would need to pre-teach vocab, relevant vocab, or review vocab if they already know it. My idea is to put the students into 4 groups. It doesn't have to be 4, it could be 3, it could be 5, depends how many students you have in the class. And then each group reads and analyzes just one paragraph for the text, from the text. Rather than looking at all of the text, they only look at one paragraph. And at the same time, they're predicting the text content that they haven't read. So for example, if I'm in group 1, I can read I can read paragraph 1, but I'm not allowed to read paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, but I do have to predict what I think is in them and write a very short paragraph predicting what's in those paragraphs. Or I could be in group 4, so I can read paragraph 4 and I have to predict and I have to write notes or a short paragraph about what's in paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. Then we all come together and we share our ideas, and then as an individual student or as an individual group, I'm allowed to read everything to check everybody's ideas. There are so many variations on this. It's up to your own creativity how you do jigsaw activities with students. But I think one of the easiest ways is with texts and just dividing them up among students. And I think that when we consider jigsaw activities, we do tend to think of jigsaw reading because it's relatively easy as teachers to set it up. But let's not forget jigsaw listening or jigsaw viewing or video watching. So let's have a think about how this might work and how you can divide content or tasks for an audio or a video. Now, I suspect that I'm the oldest person here today. And I can remember when I first started teaching, probably more than 40 years ago, we had no technology. We were lucky if we had a cassette recorder and, cassettes, if you remember what cassettes are. And if we wanted to do a jigsaw listening, we had to have multiple cassette players. So one group would have one cassette player and another group would have another cassette player and another group might have another cassette player. But you can imagine trying to get 3 cassette players and 3 cassettes with the same audio on at the same time. Impossible. So we very, very rarely did jigsaw listening. And if we did manage it, imagine the noise of different students listening to different things on cassettes. And anyway, so yeah, we didn't do it very often. But of course, nowadays with technology, it's so easy to do jigsaw listening or jigsaw video. So I do realize we're getting very short of time. So let's think about how you might actually do this. So first of all, let's just establish that, as you've said in the chat box very well, jigsaw means students having different information or tasks, and they have to get together, they have to collaborate, the thing we've been talking about, and they have to communicate in order to get the full picture. And yeah, Christina says in the chat box, of course, students can use their mobile phones nowadays in the classroom or a tablet or whatever you have available. So yeah, absolutely, it's easier to do it in the classroom today. So what are our options then? First option, students can watch different things or listen to different audio. So rather than reading a text, reading different texts or paragraphs, students can they can watch a different video or they can listen to different audio. And this is, as Christina says, with mobile phones, it's so easy now to do this in the classroom. A second option, students could watch the beginning or the end of the same audio or the same video. So you listen to the beginning, you listen to the end, and we have to predict what happens in the middle. Really nice activity for students to do. Another nice idea, and this is easy to do in the classroom. Students don't need to have individual things. You can do this as a teacher. You can show or play video or audio. So you could have half the students watching the video, and the other half only listening. How do you do that? You just tell them to turn around in their seats. So the front, I don't know how you have your students, if they're in their rows, you could say, right, the front 2 rows, you watch the screen and you can also listen, but the students at the back, you have to turn around, excuse me, and you can't see the screen, but you can listen to what's going on. So again, we're having different elements within the jigsaw. Tatiana has to go. Thank you so much for coming, Tatiana. Thank you for your contributions. And a fourth one, which is easier in terms of practicalities and setting it up. Everybody watches or listens to the same things, but students have to answer or respond to different questions. And it could just be, right, if you're group A, you do the odd numbers. If you're group B, you do the even numbers. So different ways, different options that you have if you want to set up jigsaw listening and jigsaw viewing in the classroom. Okay, if you are here right at the beginning, you'll remember that we began with a 3-2-1 activity. And I asked you for 3 things that you understand about collaboration, 2 challenges and 1 takeaway that you wanted. Well, as I also said to you that you can use 3-2-1 at the beginning or you can use it at the end. So now let's revisit collaboration skills 3-2-1. And I've slightly changed the options now. And 3 things that you understand about collaboration skills. So very, very quickly in the chat box, what do you think are the 3 most important things that you now understand about collaboration skills? 3 things that you understand. Or if you want, you can do the second one. How to set the task, distribute roles, and time managing. That's brilliant. I think that's Anita. Thank you, Anita. That's really good. You picked up on probably the most important elements within collaboration skills. That's great. Well done. What about the second one? 2 things you want to try with your students. Have you seen anything today that you'd like to try with your students? Fingers crossed from my side. I hope you've seen some things that you want to try. Alexandra, group work, 2 or more people, yeah, similar goals, role. Brilliant. Well done, Alexandra. Great. Very, very good. So Anita is going to try jigsaw tasks, and Christina is going to try the audio and the video jigsaw. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, I think we're at the end. Remember, if you would like Cambridge English newsletters sent to your inbox, please just scan the QR code on the screen. You need to sign up. You need to say what you would like to receive. And we are very, very happy to have you on board and to provide you with lots and lots and lots of free resources. Okay.
Thank you.
I think I'm done, Maya.
Thank you, Peter. It was wonderful to hear you again. It was, I think, for all of us, it was really useful. Thank you all for coming here. I really hope it was useful and engaging for all of you.
Okay, bye everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.